We've got a major development in the murder of an 18-year-old woman missing for 2 weeks.
The man accused of killing Yessenia Norman is behind bars in Mississippi awaiting extradition. Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum reports on the arrest.
Ring video from the night of January 15th shows 18-year-old Yessenia Norman leaving her transitional home she was living at in Phoenix. According to friends, she was meeting with someone she met on a dating app. 2 weeks later, January 28th, Tolleson police responded to an apartment near 91st Ave and the I-10, where investigators say Yessenia was stabbed 27 times, her body mutilated and covered in blankets and towels.
There are some people who, no matter what life throws at them, keep moving forward. Yessenia Gabriella Norman was one of those people. She was 18 years old, just 18, and already she had been through more than most people twice her age. Growing up in the foster care system is not easy. It is a life full of uncertainty, moving from place to place, never quite sure where you belong, never quite sure who is really in your corner. But Yessenia had made it through that. She had aged out of the system, and instead of falling apart, she was building something. She was living in a transitional housing program in Arizona. Now, for those who don't know what that means, when a young person turns 18 in the foster care system, the support they had doesn't just continue automatically. In many cases, it stops almost overnight. Transitional housing programs exist to catch those young people before they fall. They provide a roof, guidance, structure, and a chance to figure out how to be an adult without doing it completely alone. That is where Yessenia was. She had a room. She had a schedule. She had people around her who were supposed to help her transition into full independence. And she was not wasting the opportunity. She had enrolled in community college. She was making plans. She had goals she was working toward. People who knew her described someone who was connected. She was on her phone regularly, active on social media, checking in with people she cared about. There was nothing unusual about her behavior. Nothing that said something was wrong. She was just a young woman trying to build a life, the same thing millions of young people her age are trying to do every single day. But here is what we have to understand about where Yessenia was in life. Yes, she had structure around her. Yes, she had support. But she was also a legal adult. That meant nobody was tracking her movements. Nobody was asking who she was talking to online or where she was planning to go on a Friday night. She had freedom, the kind of freedom that comes with adulthood, but she also had the inexperience that comes with being 18 and still learning how the world works. That combination, freedom without full experience, is not a character flaw. It is just a reality of that stage of life. Most 18-year-olds are in the same position. The difference is that most of them have parents, older siblings, or close family members who naturally fill that role of asking the right questions. Yessenia did not have that same built-in safety net. And in January 2026, that gap mattered. Because somewhere on a social media dating platform, a man named Randall Basilio Santillan found her profile. And he started talking to her. She had no idea who he really was. Nobody did. Think about this for a moment. For days. That is how long Yessenia had been talking to Randall Santillan before she agreed to meet him in person. 4 days of messages. 4 days of conversation. 4 days of getting to know someone through a screen, through carefully chosen words and shared photos, and the kind of back and forth that can feel very real, very fast, when you are young and open and hopeful about people. Randall Santillan was 27 years old, 9 years older than Yessenia. They had connected through a social media dating platform, the kind of app that millions of people use every day without incident. There is nothing inherently wrong with meeting people online. People find genuine connections that way all the time. But there is something about this particular situation that we need to sit with for a moment. In 4 days, you cannot truly know a person. You can know what they choose to show you. You can know the version of themselves they are presenting. But the real details, who they are when no one is watching, what their history looks like, whether they have ever hurt someone before, none of that is visible through a phone screen in 4 days. There were no mutual friends between Yessenia and Santillan. Not a single person who knew both of them. No one who could say, "Oh, I know him, he's a good person," or even "I know him, be careful." There was no background check. No way to verify anything he had told her about himself. Just messages on a screen, and whatever impression those messages created. And yet, a meeting was arranged. Now here is the difficult truth that we have to face when we talk about cases like this one. We live in a world where online familiarity feels like real familiarity. The way these platforms are designed, the constant messaging, the immediate responses, the feeling of someone being present with you even when they are miles away, it creates a sense of closeness that can feel very genuine. And sometimes it is genuine. But sometimes that feeling is being deliberately manufactured by someone who knows exactly how to use it. We do not know with certainty what Tolleson said to Yessenia during those 4 days. The details of their conversations have not been made public. What we do know is that by the end of those 4 days, she trusted him enough to go and meet him alone. On the night of January 15th, 2026, security cameras at her transitional housing residence capture her walking out of the building. She was carrying very little. No large bags. No suitcase. Nothing that suggested she was planning to be gone for long. She looked like someone who was just going out for the evening, someone who expected to be back. She was going to Toleson's apartment in Tolleson, Arizona. She never came home. When someone goes quiet, the people who love them notice. It does not happen all at once. It starts small. A message that does not get replied to. A phone call that goes to voicemail. A post that was supposed to go up on social media that never appears. Each one of these things on its own is easy to explain away. Maybe she is busy. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she just needs some space. But when the silence stretches from 1 day to 2 days to 3 days, and this is a person who is always reachable, always active, always present, something shifts. The explanations start to run out. And the worry starts to set in. Yessenia's phone, which had been active on the night of January 15th, went completely dark. Her social media accounts, which she had been updating regularly, stopped. The people in her life who expected to hear from her did not hear from her. And after days of this, someone made the call. On January 19th, 2026, 4 days after she was last seen, Yessenia Gabriela Norman was officially reported missing. Law enforcement began the process that follows every missing person report. They pulled the last known location data from her phone. They spoke to the people at her transitional housing program, her roommates, the staff, anyone who had seen her last. They reviewed security camera footage, which showed her leaving the building on the night of January 15th. They began piecing together her movements. And every single thread they pulled led to the same place. Every piece of the picture pointed to one person, the man she had gone to meet. Randall Tolleson. His name came up quickly. Phone records showed that Yessenia and Toleson's phones had been in the same location on the night she disappeared. He was the last person she was known to be in contact with. He was the person she had gone to see. Investigators went to his apartment. He was not there. The apartment was empty. No sign of Tolleson. And at that point, with no body yet found, with the case still technically classified as a missing person investigation, detectives were left with a very troubling picture. A young woman was missing. The last person she was with had vanished. And no one knew why. For nearly 2 weeks, Yessenia's case remained open and unresolved. Her family and the people who cared about her were living in that unbearable space, that place between hope and dread, where you are desperate for answers but terrified of what those answers might be. That waiting ended on January 28, 2026. 13 days after Yessenia walked out of her residence, officers returned to Toleson's apartment in Tolleson for a welfare check. They went inside, and they found her. Yessenia Gabriela Norman had been inside that apartment the entire time. She had been there since the night she arrived. She had been stabbed 27 times. Her body had been covered with household items. She had been hidden, left there. She was 18 years old. The moment investigators confirmed that Yessenia was dead, the entire focus of the case shifted. This was no longer a missing person case. This was a murder investigation. And the prime suspect, the man whose apartment she was found in, the man she had gone to meet, was already gone. He had been gone for nearly 2 weeks, which meant he had a 2-week head start. What happened next is one of the parts of the story that shows how modern law enforcement works in ways that most people do not fully appreciate. Because Randall Tolleson may have believed that putting distance between himself and Tolleson, Arizona, would protect him. He may have believed that crossing state lines would make him harder to find. What he did not account for, or perhaps underestimated, was the technology that was quietly tracking every mile he drove. License plate readers. These are cameras that most people drive past every single day without thinking about them. They sit on highways, on bridges, at intersections, in parking structures. Every time a vehicle passes one, the camera reads the plate and logs it, the plate number, the location, the time. This data is stored and, in criminal investigations, can be accessed to reconstruct exactly where a vehicle has been. Investigators pulled that data, and what it revealed was a clear, documented path. Santillan had driven from Arizona into New Mexico, from New Mexico into Texas, from Texas north through Missouri, through Illinois, and then southeast into Mississippi, roughly 1,600 miles, across 5 states, moving consistently, putting as much distance between himself and the crime as possible. This triggered a response that went far beyond local law enforcement. The FBI became involved. Multiple state agencies coordinated. Investigators analyzed his route, his behavior, and the patterns in his travel to build a picture of where he might be heading and where he might stop. And here is the thing about running. When you run, you have to stop somewhere. You have to eat, sleep, refuel. You have to exist in the world. And every moment you exist in the world, you leave traces. Modern investigative tools, the same surveillance infrastructure that most of us barely notice as we go about our daily lives, are extraordinarily effective at finding those traces. On February 6, 2026, 3 weeks after Yessenia's death and 21 days after Santillan had fled, officers located him in Biloxi, Mississippi. He was arrested without incident. No dramatic confrontation. No chase. He was simply found, and he was taken into custody. The charges against him were first-degree murder and kidnapping. He was extradited back to Arizona, transported across the same states he had driven through during his escape, and placed in custody with a $1 million bond. The flight was over. The 1,600 miles had meant nothing. The 3 weeks had meant nothing. The evidence was waiting for him in Arizona, and so was the law. Randall Santillan is currently in custody in Arizona. He is awaiting trial. The prosecution has built a case around evidence that is direct and layered. Phone records that place him with Yessenia on the night of January 15th, an apartment lease that confirms he was the tenant, a body found inside that apartment, a documented 1,600-mile escape route, and 3 weeks of running without ever contacting law enforcement or attempting to explain what happened. The motive has not been publicly released. What happened inside that apartment on the night of January 15th, the exact sequence of events, what triggered the violence, whether this was planned before she arrived or something that escalated in the moment, none of that has been officially disclosed. These are the questions that a courtroom will eventually have to answer. But here is what we already know with certainty. An 18-year-old young woman who had survived the foster care system, who had found a place to live, who had enrolled in college, and was building something real. She is gone. She was killed by someone she had known for 4 days. Someone she met online. Someone who gave her no reason, at least none that was visible, to believe she was walking into danger. And that is the part of this story that we cannot just move past without sitting with it for a moment. We live in a world where meeting people online is completely normal. It is how a significant portion of relationships, friendships, romantic connections, professional networks begin. There is nothing shameful or naive about using a dating app or a social media platform to connect with people. Millions of people do it every single day and are perfectly safe. But this case is a clear reminder that online familiarity is not the same as real familiarity. 4 days of messages, no matter how warm or convincing they feel, cannot tell you who a person truly is. And when you are going to meet someone for the first time, especially alone, especially at their private residence, the risks are real, and the precautions matter.
Tell someone where you are going.
Share the address. Make sure someone knows who you are meeting and when you expect to be back. These are not dramatic, fearful actions. They are basic safety steps that can make an enormous difference. Yessenia did not have someone in her life who knew to ask those questions. That is not her failure. That is a gap in her support system, in the warnings we give young people, in the way we talk about online safety. She deserved better than what happened to her. She deserved the future she was working toward. She deserved to finish her first semester of community college, to figure out who she was, to make mistakes and learn from them the way every young person should be allowed to do. Instead, her name is now part of a criminal case. And the only thing we can do, the only way any of this means anything, is to make sure her story is told clearly, honestly, and with the weight it deserves. Yessenia Gabriella Norman, 18 years old. She had plans. She mattered.